First of all, thank you very much for welcoming here, and I'm sorry I arrived a little bit late. The geopolitical reality today does not always align with my agenda, so sorry for my delay. So my name is Mercè Monje Cano. I'm the Secretary General of the UNPO, Represented Nations and Peoples Organization, an organization that for more than 35 years has worked and continued to work with communities that are not adequately represented within the international system, and we work for the right of self-determination of peoples. In the title of today's event, there is two interesting angles. You speak about occupation and human rights abuses, so we have a national angle, and we speak about the failure of international accountability, so international system too. And I think it's here where I want to start. Our international system, the UN, is a state-centered system. So it's not the nations that are present in the UN, it's the states. And the peoples are left aside, are left alone. This is the case of most of the UNPO members, all of the UNPO members, that are left without meaningful ways to participate, to be heard, or to seek redress. Both the Baloch and the Sim peoples, long-standing members of the UNPO, reflect this reality. You are all distinct peoples with a distinct identity, history, political agency, but without real participation in the decisions that shape your life. And I think here is where everything starts. When participation at national and international level is denied, self-determination is denied. For UNPO, self-determination is not only about a specific political outcome. It is something much more fundamental. It is the process of the right of peoples to meaningfully participate in decision-making processes affecting their political, economic, social, cultural, and environmental lives. In Balochistan and Sindh, this exclusion, this denial of self-determination has been long-standing and is structural. And the consequences of it accumulate: repression, resource exploitation without consent, cultural and linguistic marginalization, shrinking civic spaces. So what we are discussing here is not only human rights violations and occupation, but actually human rights violations are consequences from the structural denial of your voice, of equal representation, of you being able to participate in decision-making processes affecting your future. So for us, it is denial of self-determination that actually leads to human rights abuses and not the other way around. And this leads to accountability, or the lack of accountability. Because when exclusion is structural, violations are not something accidental or isolated. They become part of a system. And yes, accountability has not taken place in Balochistan and in Sindh yet. But the fact that it has not happened yet doesn't mean that it will not. What it means is that we need to be clear and to understand and to reflect about what makes it possible, accountability, and what is needed to keep working to be ready when the conditions will be in place for a process of self-determination. Accountability requires specific conditions to be able to happen. The ability to document violations, a space of civil society to operate, access to independent mechanisms, sustain international attention, among others. And today, many of these conditions are not in place. This is the reality in Sindh and Balochistan, but is also a global reality. And I think it is important, this, because across many communities, we are seeing something very similar of what you are all facing. Across all UNPO members, brothers and sisters, peoples from everywhere, are in similar situations. And there is a sense of exhaustion, a sense of isolation, and a feeling of being left alone in front of violations that continue to happen without consequences. And increasingly, this sense of impunity is becoming something that we feel is normal. And this can lead to paralysis or can lead to a temptation of violence. But neither of two options are a way forward. Violence, especially in a symmetrical context, only increases the cost of the communities and risks undermining the possibility of a just and sustainable outcome. And paralysis and silence is just not an option. So the question here is, how do we move forward? What do we do now? And I have been thinking a lot lately. The geopolitics is affecting everyone. It's moving and shaking all of us. And I have been thinking a lot about hope, which is something that everyone claims, everyone talks about hope, but what it means, hope. And hope is not optimism, and is not a denial of the difficulties that we face. It is a decision. It is an active decision to continue to imagine that another future is possible. Not a future that somebody wants to impose us, but a future that we want to decide. It is a decision to continue shaping the conditions for change, to be active actors on the design that the future we want for our communities. It's this idea that the path is made by walking it. I don't know if any of you know the poet Antonio Machado. And there is a specific poem that I really like that says, "Traveler, there is no path. The path is made by walking." And in practical terms, even if we don't see, this walking is already happening. It's happening through all of you, through leaders like Baloch, and many others. It's done through the work of human rights offenders, reporters, communities documenting human rights violations, preserving testimonies, communities organizing. And accountability often comes after years of preparation. It is a collective effort. It is almost like a collective marathon. In this collective marathon, all of us have a place. Some lead, some run, some sustain, some carry memory, some give water, some prepare for what is next. And all of these roles matter. This is the work that you and your people, that all the UNPO communities are doing. And I want to thank you all for the work you are doing to build this future, for not losing hope, for continuing in this marathon, running, giving water, encouraging, supporting each other. At the beginning, I started mentioning the international system and the UN as a state-led system. And I started also introducing very briefly UNPO. And I want to come back into it. Because when we speak, and you mentioned the failure of accountability, we need to look at the failure that is a failure of the system, of the UN system, of the current multilateral that was built around these states at a time that even is giving more power to some states than even the others. But in any case, it's leaving out the peoples. And we see now, very interestingly, how states themselves are actually weakening the system. So there is a window of opportunity to create something new. And maybe here is what UNPO also is doing, is putting its piece in the marathon, is working alongside each of the communities, alongside each of you, often in a less visible ways. Often we cannot publish everything we do. Often we mention, we support advocacy, we build connections, we help creating the conditions to prepare ground in which accountability is possible and which self-determination is possible. And ultimately for me, it is not only a question of how to respond to human rights violation, which of course is a very important question, but it's also how to change the conditions to allow human rights violations to persist and continue. And it's not only to denounce the denial of the right of self-determination, but how we prepare the ground to make the process of self-determination possible. And this requires clarity, persistence, and a form of hope that is grounded in action. Thank you.